Hello everybody. In this lesson we will be studying about quadratic equations, what are they, and how we can solve quadratic equations by the method of factorization. So welcome to this lesson. We all know we have studied in our previous lessons that what a quadratic polynomial is. The standard form of a quadratic polynomial is ax squared plus bx plus c. Remember this? Where the degree of the polynomial is 2. Now, what is a quadratic equation? A quadratic equation is when the quadratic polynomial is equated to 0, it becomes a quadratic equation. Now, any value of x that will make the entire quadratic equation equal to 0 is called root 0 of the quadratic equation. It is also called as the root of the quadratic equation, or it is called the solution of the quadratic equation. So any value of x that will make the whole equation equal to 0 is called the 0 or the root or the solution of the quadratic equation. For example, let us consider the quadratic equation 2x squared minus 3x plus 1 equal to 0. What will be the value of this quadratic equation when I put x as equal to 1? Let us see. 2 times x squared, 1 squared, minus 3 times 1 plus 1. This is going to be 2 minus 3 plus 1. This is going to be equal to 0. So when the value of x is 1, the whole quadratic equation is equal to 0. So 1 is called the 0 of this quadratic equation, or it is also called as the root of this quadratic equation, or it is also called as the solution of this quadratic equation. So we know what the root is, what the 0 is, what the solution is. Now let us try to find out the roots of the quadratic equation, the solution to the quadratic equation by the method of factorization. But even before going to that, let us first figure out whether the given polynomial is a quadratic polynomial or not. And how do we do that? Check whether the following are quadratic equations. Number 1, x minus 2 the whole squared plus 1 equal to 2x minus 3. So let's simplify this and then find out whether this is a quadratic equation or not. Now this is in the form a minus b the whole squared. Remember that? Which is equal to a squared minus 2ab plus b squared. So we can use that formula for this. So then this will become x squared minus 2 times x times 2 plus b squared, 2 squared. And the rest of the equation remains the same, plus 1 equal to 2x minus 3. We can simplify this. X squared minus 4x plus 4 plus 1 equals 2x minus 3. Simplify further. X squared minus 4x plus 4 plus 1 becomes 5. And we move what is on the right hand side of the equal sign. We will move everything to the left hand side of the equal sign. So what happens? It will become minus 2x plus 3 equal to 0. Simplify. X squared, then minus 4x minus 2x is minus 6x, and 5 plus 3 is 8 equal to 0. Now, is this a quadratic equation? Yes. So this is a quadratic equation. Great. Okay, let's try this. X into x plus 1 plus 8 equal to x plus 2, x minus 2. Let's simplify them. X times x is going to be x squared plus x times 1 is going to be x plus 8 equal to, now this x plus 2, x minus 2 is in the form a plus b, a minus b, which is a squared minus b squared. So this can be written as x squared minus 2 squared. Now let's bring everything on one side of the equal sign, on the left hand side of the equal sign. So x squared plus x plus 8, x squared when it goes on this side of the equal sign, minus x squared. Now minus 2 squared, that is 2 squared is 4. So minus 2 squared when it goes on this side of the equal sign, it becomes plus 4 equal to 0. Now let's simplify. X squared minus x squared cancels. We are left with x plus 8 plus 4, 12 equal to 0. Now, is this a quadratic equation? No, it is not, because the highest power is not 2. So this is not a quadratic equation. Just keep in mind, look at the first step. This equation seems to be a quadratic equation over here, but when we simplify, we land up with a linear equation. So don't get confused just by looking at the first step that it is a quadratic equation. You have to simplify it to the least to find out whether it's a quadratic equation or not. Great. That's how you do it. Let's try this. Find the roots of the equations by factorization. 2x squared minus 5x plus 3 equal to 0. So we will factorize this quadratic equation. And how do we do that? We have learnt it in our lower grades. We will write down the sum over here and the product over here. Now the sum is the middle term, which is minus 5. We will only focus on the numbers. We will not take the variables into account. And the product is the coefficient of x squared and the constant. That is the product, which is 6. Now two numbers, if you multiply, you get 6. And if you add or subtract, you get negative 5. So let's focus. Two numbers, if we multiply, we get 6. So they are 2 and 3. We will get minus 5 only when both these numbers are negative. So minus 2, minus 3 will be the two numbers. Because look, negative 2 times negative 3 is positive 6. We are getting the product. And negative 2 plus negative 3 is negative 5. We are getting negative 2 minus 3. We are getting negative 5. So we are getting the sum as well as the product from these two numbers. So now we go back and we do our working. We keep the first term as it is. Now we can split the middle term. Minus 5x can be written as minus 2x minus 3x. And the rest of the equation remains the same. Now we can remove the common factor out in this. 2x is common. What remains? X minus 1. You can always check by opening the brackets and seeing whether you're getting back the above part. Then we factor this. What is the common factor over here? We remove minus 3 out. What remains? X minus 1. Because if you open the bracket, we will get back the above part, equal to 0. Now in these two, what are the common factors over here? it is x minus 1. So I can remove x minus 1 out. What remains? 2x minus 3 equal to 0. Now if a product of two terms is equal to 0, then either one of the term could be 0. So either x minus 1 could be equal to 0 or 2x minus 3 could be equal to 0. We can solve them. X minus 1 equal to 0, therefore x is equal to 1. In this case, 2x minus 3 is equal to 0, so 2x is equal to 3, x is equal to 3 over 2. So the roots of this equation are 1 and 3 over 2. What does that mean? It means that if I replace x with 1, the entire equation will be equal to 0. Or if I replace x with 3 over 2, the entire quadratic equation will land up to be equal to 0. So these are the roots for this quadratic equation. These are the zeros for this quadratic equation. These are the solutions for this quadratic equation, whichever way you want to call it as. Excellent. Good going. Keep practicing. Keep working. Let's try this. Solve by factorization or find the roots of the quadratic equation. 3x squared minus 2 root 6x plus 2. So we will factorize by splitting the middle term. Let's write down the sum over here and product over here. And we already know the sum is the middle term minus 2 root 6. And the product is 3 times 2, which is 6. Now, two numbers, if you multiply, you get 6. And if you add or subtract, you get minus 2 root 6. Can you think? Remember, in the sum there is root 6. So you need to take care of that. So can I write 6 as root 6 times root 6? Yes, because root 6 times root 6 is 6. But in order to get the sum minus 2 root 6, both these numbers should be negative. Only then will I get negative root 6 minus root 6 is minus 2 root 6. And negative root 6 times negative root 6 is positive 6. So we got those numbers. Now let's come back and split the terms. So 3x squared, the first term is going to remain as it is, minus 2 root 6, I can write it as minus root 6x minus root 6x plus 2 equal to 0. Now let's try to remove the common factors. But before we even get to remove the common factors, over here it is being a little bit difficult to find out what's the common factor. In order to figure out, let's zoom in. Can I write 3 as root 3 times root 3? Yes. Can I write root 6 as root 3 times root 2? Yes. So now, can you see what's the common factor over here? I can remove root 3 out over here. X. So what remains? Root 3 minus root 2. You see that? Then over here we do the same thing. Root 6, I can write it as root 3 times root 2. And 2 can be written as root 2 times root 2. Do you see what's the common factor over here? If I remove minus root 2 out, over here it is root 3x. What remains over here is root 3x minus root 2 equal to 0. See that? So what's the common factor over here now? So we have root 3x minus root 2 times root 3 minus root 2. Root 3x minus root 2 equal to 0. So both, they seem to be the same. So we can write them as root 3x minus root 2 equal to 0. Simplify it. So root 3x is equal to root 2. X is going to be equal to root 2 over root 3, or square root of 2 over 3. So this will be the root of the quadratic equation. Let's try this. Find two numbers whose sum is 27 and product is 182. So let the first number be x and the second number will be 27 minus x. And the question says the product of these two numbers is 182. So this times this is equal to 182. That is what the question is saying. Now we can easily simplify. Open the brackets. X times 27, 27x. X times minus x squared equal to 182. We can bring everything on one side of the equal sign. We will bring the left hand side on the right hand side of the equal sign to avoid x squared being negative. So what will happen? When everything goes on the right hand side, we will have x squared minus 27x plus 182 equal to 0. And of course we can write this also as x squared minus 27x plus 182 equal to 0. Doesn't really matter. Now we can solve our factorization method by splitting the middle term. We know that the sum and the product. The sum is minus 27 and the product is 1 times 182, which is 182. Now two numbers, if we multiply, we get 182. It is 13 times 14. And how can we get minus 27 from this? When we add both of them, and both have to be negative, because minus 13 minus 14 will give us minus 27. Now we can go ahead with splitting the terms. So x squared and minus 13x minus 14x, the 27 has been split, plus 182 equal to 0. Now factor this. X is common. What remains? X minus 13 remains. And now factor this. Minus 14 we remove out. What remains? X minus 13 equal to 0. So what are the common factors here? X minus 13 times x minus 14 equal to 0. So therefore x minus 13 equal to 0, or x minus 14 equal to 0. So x could be equal to 13 or x could be equal to 14. So the two numbers are 13 and 14. Great. Let's try this. The altitude of a right triangle is 7 centimeters less than its base. If the hypotenuse is 13 centimeters, find the other two sides. We know a right triangle, how it looks like. Something like this. This is 90 degrees. And the question says the altitude of the right triangle is 7 times less than its base. So let the base of the triangle be x. So the altitude is going to be 7 times less than that. So it's going to be x minus 7. And the hypotenuse is 13 centimeters. So we have labeled all the triangles. Do you remember the Pythagorean theorem? if this is A and this is B and this is C, we know that C squared is equal to A squared plus B squared. You know that? So then according to this formula of Pythagorean theorem, our problem will look like C squared, which is 13 squared, equal to A squared x minus 7 the whole squared plus B squared plus x squared. So our problem, we have reduced it into a mathematical equation. Now we can go on solving this. 13 squared is 169 equal to, now this is in the form x minus 7 the whole squared is in the form a minus b the whole squared, which is expanded x squared minus 2ab, 2 times x times 7 plus b squared, 7 squared, plus we are left with the other part x squared. Simplify further, we get 169 equal to x squared plus x squared can be written as 2x squared. So 2x squared minus 2x times 7 is minus 14x plus 7 squared is 49. Now let's bring the 169 on the other side of the equal sign. It will become minus 169. So this will be 2x squared minus 14x plus 49 minus 169 equal to 0. Simplify, 2x squared minus 14x plus 49 minus 169 is minus 120 equal to 0. Now we can start factorizing. But wait a minute, these seem to be relatively big numbers. Can we reduce the numbers? Observe over here, 2, 14 and 120. All these numbers can be divided by 2. So if I divide every term on both sides of the equation by 2, the value of the equation should not change. So after dividing every term by 2, I will end up with x squared minus 7x minus 60 equal to 0. Now this becomes relatively easy for us to factorize. So let's factorize this quadratic equation now. So x squared minus 7x minus 60, factorizing by splitting the middle term. We know that this is sum and product, same procedure. Take the middle term, which is minus 7. The product happens to be minus 60. Two numbers you multiply, you get 60, and if you add them or subtract them, you get negative 7. Negative 60 and negative 7. 12 times 5 is 60. But since we want minus 7, this needs to be minus 12 and this needs to be plus 5. So now we got the two terms for splitting the middle term. So we can write x squared minus 7x can be minus 12x plus 5x minus 60 equal to 0. Take the common factors out of these first two. So it's going to be x is common. So x minus 12. And over here in the second part, 5 is common. X minus 12 equal to 0. So we remove x minus 12 out. X plus 5 equal to 0. So x minus 12 is equal to 0, or x plus 5 is equal to 0. So x is equal to 12, or x is equal to negative 5. But what does x stand for? It is the base of the triangle. Remember that? We have taken x as the base of the triangle. And the length of a triangle cannot be negative. So this case is ruled out. So the base of the triangle is 12 centimeter. And the height of the triangle is 7 less than its base. So 12 minus 7, 5 centimeter. So these are the two sides of the triangle. Good. Let's try this. A cottage industry produces a certain number of pottery articles in a day. It was observed on a particular day that the cost of production of each article was 3 more than twice the number of articles produced on that day. If the total cost of production on that day was 90 rupees, find the number of articles produced and the cost of each article. So to begin with, let the number of articles produced on one day be X. So what will be the cost of one article according to the question? The cost of production of each article was 3 more than twice the number of articles. So the cost of each article, cost of each will be 3 more than twice the number of articles. Twice the number of articles and 3 more than that. Now what will be the total cost? The total cost is nothing but the number of articles produced times the cost of each article produced. And that is given to be 90 rupees. So here we got the equation now. So x times 2x plus 3 equal to 90 rupees. Open the brackets, 2x squared plus 3x. Let's move the 90 on the other side. Minus 90 equal to 0. Now we have this quadratic equation. I leave it upon you to solve it by the factorization method. We have done quite a lot of problems on how to split the middle term. Now when you do all that working, you will end up with finding x to be equal to 6 or x will be equal to negative 15 over 2. I am sure you will get these answers because you are smart and you're really doing well so far. Now, what does x stand for? X stands for the number of articles. But the number of articles cannot be negative. So this is ruled out. So the number of articles produced will be 6. And so this will be the number of articles produced then. And the cost of each article is going to be 2x plus 3. We know that. So 2 times 6 plus 3, which is going to be 15 rupees. So each article is going to cost us 15 rupees and the number of articles produced are 6. Good job. This completes the lesson. Keep trying, keep working. You can improve if you persistently keep working. Thank you for watching.